Hey everyone, and welcome to MedEdge. I'm Marcus Grimm. Quick reminder, MedEdge is brought to you by the folks at Medtrics. Medtrics is the premier student, faculty, and administrator engagement platform for both UME and GME. You can learn more at medtrixlab.com or from my frequent co-host, Medtrics CEO Santosh Cherian, but not today. Tosh is taking care of those customers, which we certainly all appreciate. Hey, this one is one of our special MedEdge Future series. As a reminder, through a partnership we've been doing with the MD Plus community, we wanted to talk to people that had recently gone through the Residency Match Day process. It's something that every one of Medtrics customers is constantly working toward, getting those MSPEs done, getting all those records loaded into the platform, making sure that the students and the faculty have everything they need to do actually go through the match day process. And what a process it is. But at the end of the day, that process, those are real human beings behind it, right? These are students who have poured their heart and souls into their careers thus far. And in one day, their lives are forever changed. Or in the case of today's guest, yes, 2 days that fundamentally changed his life. Today we're speaking with Ankoor Talwar. Let's just go through a little bit of Ankoor. We've got undergraduate at Union College, MBA from Clarkson. After that, Albany Medical College. Ankoor, welcome to MedEdge. We are thrilled to have you here today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Marcus. I really appreciate the opportunity. And, I love what you guys are doing with MD Plus and MedEdge. So congrats to you.
Wonderful. Now, we haven't gone into your residency process yet, but before we do that, all three of those schools are New York. Is New York home for you? Is that what you're called home?
Yeah. So I actually grew up in Long Island, New York, in Searingtown and New Hyde Park area. Born and raised my whole life, and then went to college and med school up in upstate New York.
Awesome. Now, We've had a couple people on that we've interviewed who've gone through who've gotten MBA or MD or had the MBA MD combo, which to me just sounds like a really difficult degree to get. You have an MBA, you also have an MD, but you went what I would maybe call the more traditional route. You did one and then the other, which sounds a bit more sane to me. But just walk us through that experience. Did you consider doing the dual, or how did you decide to do one and then the other? How'd that come together?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, I don't know if I would call my path super traditional, but I basically from high school matriculated to this program between Union, Clarkson, and Albany Med. That was like a triple degree 8-year program. So straight from high school, September of my freshman year of college, I was starting my undergrad as well as my MBA courses. And I basically completed my MBA and undergrad alongside each other. And then following that, matriculated to medical school.
At that time, what I'm really curious about is I love talking to people like yourself who have this MBA, MD thing, because I almost feel like they almost have two views of the medical world. There is the business view that's looking at the complexity and the inefficiencies that exist. But then there's also the fundamental, hey, at the end of the day, we're trying to make patients better. We're trying to heal people. At that point, how are you kind of seeing yourself? Were you doing the MBA to get that holistic view, or did you? We've had some people have said, you know what, I want to work in healthcare administration. Quite frankly, I think the best way to do it is to be a physician first. How have you taken both those degrees and kind of said, here's what I'm looking to do with them? Here's how I'm thinking about my career.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the program and the MBA for anyone in particular has like a totally new meaning, like you were saying. For me personally, I was interested in healthcare entrepreneurship and startups and figuring out how to innovate within the healthcare space. My MBA was through the program was more geared towards healthcare administration, but I just got a better view of the healthcare system than definitely most of my peers. I think we do a fairly poor job about teaching the healthcare system and different players and how payments work and how all the different fragments fit together. We do a poor job teaching students that in medical school. So I was really thankful to have that education before I went to med school.
I couldn't agree more. It's fascinating to me, and we've had some great guests on the show, and one that I frequently refer to is Dr. Daniel Paul. And Dr. Daniel Paul, I asked him if he has got his own practice now, and it's a direct pay practice. And I asked him, if med school had trained him at all for the business of healthcare. And I thought he had a really honest answer. He said no, but you know what? Teaching people medicine is that's pretty comprehensive in and of itself. So it's how do you do both of those? So I think that perspective that you've been given is good. Now, I almost hate to ask this to you because you're still at the early stage of your career, but are you still kind of thinking that at some point you see yourself on the administration or entrepreneurship side, or is there a part of you that says, you know what, I might just be a physician? How are you thinking about your future right now?
Yeah, I definitely am more of the former. I'm definitely interested in kind of pursuing entrepreneurship and innovation alongside a clinical career. I definitely want to have both parts to it. Maybe, later on, I'm kind of interested in leadership and administration, but, we'll see how the dice roll. I'm still early on, like you said, and I'm excited to see where everything goes.
Let's move on to talking about the roll of the dice. Your story is fascinating to me. So a little bit over a year and a half ago, you were actually up for residency application process, and as this story unwinds, people will just quickly discover why we're starting a year and a half ago. But walk us through that. A year and a half ago, when you were beginning to apply for residency, what were you trying to do, and what were your plans for residency?
Yeah, so I applied to integrated plastic surgery residency, which is one of the hardest specialties to apply for. I started out doing 4 months of sub-internships, so like my home program, and then 3 months back-to-back at other institutions. Those were extremely grueling experiences, mostly because you're working as hard as you possibly can just to prove yourself as a valuable team member, someone who's interested in the field, and frankly, just you're competing with some of the best students across the country for integrated plastic surgery, and so it's a tough competition for sure. So I was doing that. I was applying at the same time. Getting all my essays together, sending it out to mentors, getting letters put together.
You had a little subtle comment there that I thought was interesting. One of the most challenging specialties of all. So what does that mean about you? Does that mean you're always looking for the hard path, or had you just always want to go into plastic surgery? How does the roll of the dice mean that you're going after the hardest thing to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was really lucky early on in med school. I knew I wanted to be a surgeon just because, I like working with my hands. I really like the ability to do something and see the result of it after. And first year of med school, I was really diligent about shadowing all these different surgical fields. And I was lucky, there was this new plastic surgeon who had come to Albany, and he had showed me some of the coolest surgeries I've ever seen. So like when most people think of plastic surgery, they think of, facelifts and boob jobs and things like that. But plastic surgery is way more comprehensive. And actually the reconstructive side is really, really interesting. What sold me was this case that I saw. It's a microsurgical case. It's a free tissue transfer of an anterior lateral thigh flap to basically an open wound. Basically, what you do is you take some tissue from one part of the body, you dissect it down to its blood vessel, and you cut it off, and then you take it to an open wound, and under a microscope, so like whatever X vision, you use microscopic sutures to suture the blood vessels back together.
Wow.
And just seeing the microscope and seeing the plastic surgeons at work doing that, I thought that was just the pinnacle of surgery. And that's what really sold me on the field.
Was it to the point that when you, going back again a year and a half, when you applied for residency a year and a half ago, did you have multiple specialties or was it plastic surgery or bust? How are you doing that?
Yeah, it was plastic surgery or bust for me, for sure. Yeah, I wanted it that badly.
And do you recall at the time how many applications you did?
Yeah, everyone applies everywhere is essentially what happens. And so there's like 80, 85 programs in the country. So you apply for every single one of them. And that's just not just me, it's everyone.
Because that specialty is that.
Yeah.
So that's everyone goes after them. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Does that also mean that one of the things that we often talk about in these interviews is rank order? Did you have a strong opinion on rank order, or were you just like, I'll take any of these 80? Like what's that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think the attitude is mostly that, you should be thankful for any spot, given that I think it's like half or less than half people actually match.
Okay.
To apply. But certainly, you have your own rank order based on your own personal preferences.
So half, that's a sizable number. When you're waiting for match day arrive to a year and a half ago, how are you feel? It's interesting. On one hand, you're clearly well spoken. You clearly you're a tremendous student. But so is everybody else, right? So I'm curious, a year and a half ago, like what was kind of your mental state? Were you like, I'm pretty confident, or was it like, I don't know what's gonna happen?
Yeah, I the first time I applied, I was very confident that I'd make it. And it's honestly because I worked extremely hard starting day one of med school. I was AOA. I was in the top of my med school class. I did well in my board exams. But I also, between third and fourth year of med school, I took 1 year out to do dedicated research in plastic surgery. And that was at a very competitive position just to do the research. And I had done a good job. That was like a very productive year for our team. So yeah, going in, I was pretty confident.
So as we mentioned, we're gonna be telling two stories about you. So clearly not all of them have a happy ending, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me about match, and we're not really talking about match day last year. We're talking about the Monday prior to match day, right? Because that's when you find out if you got matched at all.
Yeah, exactly.
So where were you? What happened?
Oh my God, I think I was in the gym, and I got this phone call from my dean, and I was like, "What's happening?" I picked up the phone call and she was like, Ankoor, I'm sorry, but you did not match. And at least for the first 10 minutes, I didn't believe it. I was like totally stunned. I was like, you're lying to me.
Right.
No, it was an absolute whirlwind that Monday for sure.
For so many reasons, right? But, I'm curious when you get that news, how much of it, and this goes into the residency process, is there helpful feedback in there, or is it just sorry?
Well, first of all, there's no like formal feedback or anything. It's mostly just the latter, like you said. But I think it's really important if you do unfortunately find yourself in my position that it's crucial to get feedback on what happened,
right?
How you could have fixed it. But you have to be active in seeking that out. So, contact your mentors, have people look at your application for a second time, see where the flaws were, have an in-depth discussion with multiple people about what they felt like went wrong.
Are you the type of person, like, so you mentioned you were in the gym when this happened. Were you doing that afternoon, or were there a couple of days that you were just floored? I mean, what was your mental state like then?
It was that week is tough for sure. I didn't go to the gym the rest of the week. It's actually a very crucial week. This is important to know. It's like when you don't match on Monday, you have like, let's say 20 hours to basically rework your application for the SOAP, which is the supplemental offering program for basically anyone who didn't match. There's this process to fill unfilled spots. And so if that's something you decide to do, which not everyone does, I think most people would do, then you have, just a day to basically rewrite your application and apply. And then the next 2 days you have to interview anywhere. And then the Thursday you have to basically pick a spot in this like 4-round system. And then Friday is match day. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So what did that week look like for you then? And how did that kind of set up what happened next?
I got the phone call. I went to school. They had an area set up for everyone who didn't match. They were very kind. A lot of the deans were there. They brought food and water, and they made us sit down. And our advisors came in and they basically walked us through next steps, open positions, working on the application. My advisor sat with me for hours to reread my essays and things like that. And I was very, very thankful for him for doing that. That's when I think my brother flew in.
Your brother flew in?
Yeah. He's also a medical student at the time. And he had matched. So he was like kind of in the clear.
Gotcha.
Very thankful for, his support and my parents' support at that time.
So how does that week wrap up for you then in terms of, what happened next?
Yeah. So I, talked to my mentors. I figured that, there were some, identifiable weaknesses in my application. The best way forward, if, I still wanted to do plastic surgery, which was my true burning desire, is to try a 1-year prelim surgical internship. So applied for those, was lucky to find one at Georgetown, picked that spot on Thursday. And yeah, then, Friday is basically match day, quote unquote. So that happened and suddenly it was all over.
So that prelim process that you go through, help me understand how is that different than a true residency?
Yeah, that's a good question. So most residencies are categorical residencies. So like you have a start date and then a multiple year process, at which point you graduate and you're eligible or you're board eligible for whatever field you just completed. A prelim or preliminary year is basically a 1-year contract to, do whatever is in that specialty. So typically there's only 2 types. There's like a medicine prelim year and then a surgery prelim year. And those are basically given to folks who don't match, folks who need to do one for, like, let's say anesthesia or interventional radiology or something in the future. And they just need that 1-year internship background.
So you go and you do this prelim for a year at Georgetown. At this point, just talk to us about I could see mentally, I could see a lot of things. I could see I didn't match. This is as good as I could do. Or I could see, wow, I'm back in the game here. How are you feeling when you were able to pick up that contract at Georgetown? Did you feel like, okay, I'm back on the path?
It wasn't immediate, but I definitely think, Marcus, what you said is really important, because I think the natural tendency is to feel the first way, to feel bummed, to feel, totally disillusioned and, to feel hurt, whatever. But it's crucial that you change your attitude towards the latter, because that's the only way you're going to be a good intern, is to be pleasant, to be positive, to be reliable, to enjoy what you do, to do everything with a smile. It's crucial that you need to have that mindset to excel as an intern. And it's a 1-year contract, right? You're not guaranteed anything after this year. So it's like doubly important for prelims. And, it wasn't just me who was in this situation. I had 5 other colleagues who were reapplying with me at Georgetown.
Wow.
Luckily, all of us matched this year.
I'm curious, is in general, is the prelim path, is it usually successful like that, or does it really just depend on the year and the student? Like, how do you think about that?
I think I can't stress this enough how lucky I am and my peers are to be at Georgetown, because we have a prelim program director, Dr. Jackson, who really cares about how we do and our outcomes. And I will say, I think most surgical prelims for competitive specialties don't pan out, but it's crucial to find a program that, is going to support you, is going to back you, gives you the opportunity to succeed, things like that, which thankfully I was happy to, have that with me.
Tremendous. So now we get into last fall, and you get to do it all again. Talk about your first off. Is it just this hard to go through the applications again? I mean, is there a lot of copy and paste involved, or are you going back to the mill? Like what's it like the second time around?
Yeah, so a lot of it's copy and paste about like the objective things, like these are the papers I wrote. This is like that's activities I did. What changed entirely were the subjective essays, particularly your personal statement. I think after not matching, I think your statement basically has to be about not matching and how you've grown and overcome and want to continue that trajectory. Because that's really, as a second-time applicant or a reapplicant of any sort, that's really your value add over a first-year applicant, right? Like on paper, you scores, whatever, it's kind of all the same at some point. But look, now this person is brand new, fresh out of med school, versus you have some sort of baggage with you that we don't know. We don't know why you didn't match or anything, but you didn't match. So how are you going to be better than that other person? And it's because, you've gone through the process, you've become an intern, you appreciate what being in the hospital, working in a team setting is like, and how you have, how you've been successful there, how you want to continue being successful and grow from this experience, and, just become a better resident that way. And so bringing that out in the personal statement was critical for me and all my peers.
Absolutely. And to your point, and it is a thing that we always say, and, we always say that the investors in Silicon Valley, they like to bet on that. They like to bet on the CEO that's failed once or twice, right? So having that perspective is huge. So, but I'm guessing from a sheer work standpoint, you already mentioned that the first time around you applied to all 88 programs. Do you do that again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So you go into all 88 programs, and where were you this year on the Monday before match day?
Where was I? The entire month of March, I was on night float. So I had just finished a shift. I come back home. It's like 7 a.m. You learn if you didn't match or not by like 10 a.m. And so I can't sleep until I get the email that, hooray, you've matched. And then, I celebrate for about 20 minutes, then go back to bed because I have to work at night.
There's so many things you could feel. Was it just relief, or was it joy? I mean,
there was a lot of emotion.
It must have felt terrific.
Yeah, it did. It felt good for sure. It was a lot of relief. It was a lot of gratitude, and yeah, I think mainly those two emotions. Certainly joy as well. But it was quite. That Monday was quite emotional. It was quite something.
And one of the things that I've learned through these interviews is, as much as these different programs, they obviously want to be your top choice. I've heard plenty of people tell me that, it really is about getting into any one of these programs. So talk to us then. A few days later, you actually find out where you're going to be. So tell us about where you're going to be and where that program was on your ranking.
Yeah, so I'm going to be going to Dartmouth next year, which I'm super, super excited for. I had ranked it pretty high because, I'm from the Northeast. All my, network and family and friends are here. So, I wanted to stay local. It's close to Boston, reasonably close to New York, where I'm from. And honestly, the biggest attraction to the program for me was the fact that they really integrate, their surgery residents with the innovation environment. So, harkening back to our MBA discussion from earlier, they have a Center for Surgical Innovation that some of the attendings are involved with. They have, their campus, they have this translational research building. I'm really interested in the applications of AI and computing to healthcare. And so some of their, biggest researchers are right next to the hospital, and they collaborate on things all the time. And so I think it was a good fit for me because not only do I get that rigorous clinical training in plastic surgery, but I can also get that other aspect in terms of innovation and entrepreneurship. So it was a good fit.
Oh, that's super cool. That is super cool, which brings me up to one of my last questions for you, which actually, I'm going to ask you a couple questions yet. Because you've gone through match day a couple times, what's your opinion on the process? And wow, you've been a winner and you've been a quote unquote loser in this. So like you've seen both sides of it. Is this the best way to do it in America? What were your thoughts on the process in general? The one thing I really need to say is, wow, in so many situations, like your mentors and your schools really did what they could. But from a process perspective, what are your thoughts on just the whole process?
It's a tough process. It's not perfect, certainly. I think a lot of the program leadership, especially in plastic surgery, I'm sure in other fields will say it's an imperfect, there's a flawed process. At the same time, I don't know what's a better alternative. They're trying to, at least in plastic surgery, to make it a little easier. I told you everyone applies everywhere. So if you applied to 85 programs on ERAS, that would be thousands of dollars, especially if they do it twice. They're trying to streamline that by doing this common application, which is just a one-time, fairly reasonable payment. I think it was like $100 this year. And suddenly you save, thousands of dollars on that. I will say the whole, not just like the application, but the entire process of evaluating candidates is really murky and it's really frustrating for a lot of people. We're trending to no grades, in any academic setting. Step one is pass fail. There's still step two scores, thankfully. But your rotations, people don't really understand what people are looking for. There's no objective measures necessarily for that. Those rotations are also very expensive. Rent in a big city for a 1 month, a 1 month sublet to do a rotation somewhere can easily be thousands upon thousands of dollars. And that's coming out of, just a student's pocket, and times that by, however many rotations you're doing, that's a lot. That's a big chunk of change right there. So I think, there should be more innovation on that whole process front, how we're evaluating candidates and just being more open about that, I think would be a major boon.
Wonderful. I'm going to do my last question here, which is what I wanted to ask you about before. As I was doing research for this, we are 2 days from, as we're recording this, from the anniversary of an editorial that you had published last year in American Surgeon Journal. In that article, which is called "When the Walls Fall Down," you discuss in depth the experience of shepherding a non-U.S. citizen through not just the process of getting surgery, but the prospect of paying for and recovering from surgery outside of the traditional healthcare insurance experience. And what was interesting to me is that was published before you were an intern. So obviously a lot more of facilitating and supporting patients as opposed to actually caring for them, which you've been doing now for the past year. I'm curious, going through that experience compared to actually becoming a plastic surgeon. Both of them are absolutely critical, and I'm just curious, when you think about yourself now, the sense I get from you is you're still young enough that you want to figure out how to help both sides of that equation. But how are you thinking about, some of those lessons that you learned prior to becoming an intern, and then what the previous year was kind of like for you as you were doing more direct care?
Wow. Marcus, you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's going to be really important for young med students, young residents, young doctors to really appreciate the whole process of getting healthcare. And, I was lucky to have that one experience at the Penn Center for Surgical Health to basically navigate a patient through the health process, super complicated health process. And I think having that experience has made me appreciate more of what social workers and case managers do. And, those are two groups of people that you don't really interact with in med school, but I interact with every day as an intern. Like every day I'm talking to them, talking about how we're getting patients, to their rehab facility, to their nursing home, to their homes. How are we getting them the appropriate nursing, like home nursing, home PT, home OT, things like that. And just having that prior experience has definitely made me more attuned to, what kind of problems certain populations face and how there might be ways to innovate and fix them. And that's something I'm certainly passionate about trying to fix in the future. Outstanding.
Ankoor, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us today, and your willingness to share about the story and what you went through, and just turning on a dime, and just congratulations to you, and best of luck with your official residency at Dartmouth. That's just fantastic. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Marcus. I have to say, it's been so fun talking to you, and I think you're doing a really valuable thing by trying to spread these stories about residency to everybody. So thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. It's been myself and Tosh and everyone on the Medtrics team. We really enjoyed doing this series with MD Plus. As we've said before, the handoff from medical school to residency, it's arguably one of the most critical junctures of a physician's life. Years of discipline and goals distilled into a system inside trying to place candidates at the right school, making sure that the right school, the right hospital systems get the right residents. And what happens then when sometimes it doesn't happen? Well, we learned today from Ankoor Talwar what that's absolutely like. Gone through that process, didn't get matched his first time around, got matched the second time around. He's headed to Dartmouth, and he's going to do great things in the world of plastic surgery. Congratulations, Ankoor. Hey, MedEdge is brought to you by Medtrics. Medtrics is the premier student, faculty, and administration engagement platform for both UME and GME. You can learn more about Medtrics at medtricslab.com, or from my co-host, Santosh Cherian. For Tosh and everybody else on the Medtrics team, I'm Marcus.